Aaron Day here from the Third Gear, and I want to share some important information for small business owners who are in the really early stages of business or who are just starting out with a brand new business. So the first thing I want to cover is the 5 key things that every business needs to get under control in order for that business to be successful. So the first is your strategy and marketing, which we put together. They're 2 separate things, but we classify them as one because they're so closely linked. The next is the sales. Then after that, you've got to get your financial management processes in place, then your operational processes, and finally, the people side of the business. And that applies even if you're a solopreneur or you're just working on your own. You still need to make sure that you are managing your priorities and focusing on the things that you need to be doing, and also preparing to bring others into the business to help you to achieve your goals. Which leads us to the next critical thing, which is this model for wealth creation. This is actually called the cash flow quadrant. It was created by a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. This is a really important diagram. And the reason for that, and this video is going to go a little bit longer than our normal videos would, because I'm hoping in this one that I'm actually going to share some information with you that's going to be educational and informative and be of value. So regardless of whether or not you end up working with the Third Gear, at least you'll get some value out of the time you're spending watching this. So essentially what this diagram is about it's about the way wealth is created, and it's about the way people perceive the pathway to creating wealth. And if you haven't seen this before, it's obviously been a quadrant made up of 4 parts. So we have the employee part, the self-employed part, the business owner, and the investor. But what's more important is understanding how the 2 halves, the left and the right-hand side of this quadrant, are important. What most people do when they get into business is they're coming from a job, or they're coming from the employee mentality that the education system trains us for. It's not up to the school system to create entrepreneurs, that's up to us. It's up to the school system to create good employees who will go and contribute to the system. For those of us who aren't satisfied with that, we want more. We want to create wealth and freedom for ourselves and create choices that are beyond the ordinary. We decide to go into business. The problem is that most people don't really make that full transition mentally to what business really requires, which is a different mindset. And most people have to start out in this quadrant here, self-employed. Most of us don't have the choice to start a giant business with heaps of infrastructure. Most of us have to start here, but the key is start systemizing the business as quickly as possible. So from the very beginning, you should be thinking about putting systems in place that will allow you to eventually replicate yourself or outsource the duties that you're performing. This will then allow your business to grow. But to do that, you've got to have systems in place to control the results that others are producing for you. And this is really a critical part of why the Third Gear exists. We've developed a very effective system and a set of processes that are very, very good at taking businesses from the left side of the quadrant over to the right-hand side of the quadrant. And we do that by systemizing the business, which leads us into the next stage. So all successful businesses go through 3 different phases. And I say successful because the ones that don't make it obviously don't get to the 3rd phase. But in the very beginning, there are 4 critical things that most small businesses need to focus on and get right. And they are basically sales, marketing, your financial management, and your basic operational processes that sort of form the foundation. Make sure that you're providing a consistent outcome for your clients and make the business as easy as possible to operate in its early stages, preparing it for the next level. So between stages 1 and 2, to get to level 2, you're going to need to make some improvements in terms of building infrastructure, building basic operating systems into the business. And these are all around the administration, the clarification of roles, the defining of processes and the systems that actually contribute to making the business function on a day-to-day basis. These are things that most business owners don't think about, and this is exactly the reason why you hear stories about small business people starting out really well, building up momentum, growing fast, and then a few years later, you know, they've got staff and they've got lots of things happening, but it becomes overwhelming. And sometimes they end up letting their customers down, or they fail to control their cash flow as they grow, or they fail to be able to control the team or the operational day-to-day processes that are happening, and it all becomes too hard. They throw in the towel, and then they go back to, you know, the man in the van with an apprentice or something along those lines. And most people know somebody who's been through that process. And the sad thing is that that didn't actually have to happen that way. The reason that they weren't able to progress because they didn't understand the importance of systems and how those systems need to be structured. We actually have another video. In fact, the video on our homepage explains these different elements and how they sort of work together, or at least gives you an introduction to them anyway. So but it's critical to understand this management infrastructure that you've got to build to be able to grow a big, successful business. So moving into the second stage, we're typically at the point now where we've got at least 6, 7 or 8 staff. In our experience, typically we're looking at 8 to 12 is kind of the magic hotspot where things start to get intense if you don't have the right systems in place. And so here you need to be looking at starting to get really good at managing staff performance, maintaining consistency of quality and having consistency of processes, because you've got lots of people handling different parts of your business's workflow. But if you can get that right, that leads you to the next stage, which is where you transition fully over into the other side of the cash flow quadrant, where you're actually a business owner, where the business functions without your operational involvement. And this is a really powerful place to be, because you then have not only the wealth coming in, but you also have the freedom, the time freedom to be more strategic and to start focus on things like expanding the business even further, perhaps even looking at developing a franchise model off of the systems that you've already put into place, acquiring new businesses, opening new branches, or even just solidifying what you have in place and starting to focus on the fourth section of the cash flow quadrant, which is becoming a good investor, finding assets that are good value and produce good returns, and taking the cash flow from the business and then investing that to create real long-term wealth. So we have these 3 stages that the third gear system can actually help transition a business through, from the very beginning startup through to that middle stage where you're starting to become more complex and sophisticated, through to the mature stage where you're really starting to reap the benefits of the business. And everything begins with having a great foundation. So we've developed a program specifically for startups and for early stage businesses, focusing on developing the structures around these 4 key elements of your business. And a lot of our clients that we end up working with for over a long period of time, some for several years, we're actually doing that because we're taking them from these very early stages through into the second, more developed stage, into the third and final mature stage of their business. One of the key things that helps us do that is some unique software that we've developed. We actually have a patent on the system that we've developed, and it solves some fundamental issues in small business that, well, up until we developed the system, no one else had really figured out how to best do that. So that also provides leverage and value in your business as well. So imagine if you've got all of the systems set up and you've got an automated structure that allows you to control what's going on with your business using technology. And everybody knows the people with the best technology, the businesses with the best technology, are the ones that are leading the pack. And so we actually put our business owners in that position by giving them our leading edge technology, as well as the systems for growth. So wrapping it all up, in a nutshell, we've got the 5 core challenges of the business. These things are all fundamental to being able to systemize those so that you can make the transition from the left side to the right side of the cash flow quadrant, from being a self-employed business where it's focused all around you through to being a properly systemized business that doesn't require your operational involvement in the day-to-day. And once you've done that, you can start to easily transition, and you can actually accelerate your transition through each of the key business stages. And it all starts by building with a foundation of systems to start moving you forward and develop yourself an unstoppable business model, and tie that all in to an automated leading edge technology platform that's going to give you an advantage over competitors in your marketplace. And that's the combination that will give you a really good chance at building a terrific business. If you'd like to find out more, please get in contact with us at thethirdgear.com.au, and we look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.